rising costs, wages, regulation, third-party apps, all these things that are affecting your business. And we're going to get through all of them today with our special guest, Troy Hooper, CEO of Pepper Lunch. He's going to help us navigate through the troubles that are happening today and in the future. All right, Troy, thank you for joining the Promenade for Restaurants podcast. Great to have you.
Awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's jump into it because I think as always, there's always things that are happening in the economy. The world is evolving, consumer behavior is evolving, and so there's always challenges around restaurants surviving. I feel like there's always something that they have to try to dodge or avoid or navigate through. What do you think the current challenges are for independent restaurant owners today?
Yeah, I think there's some universal truths, and I think there's some regionality pressures, although the regionality issues are starting to sort of spread more quickly. Regulatory issues with minimum wage, other fees, other pressures of limitations. In California, we just fought off the what they called the Junk Fee Act. They carved out restaurants and said, okay, you're allowed to charge service fees and other mandatory gratuities, as we always have for large parties, but you have to advertise and make it very clear on the menu, things like this. These types of things are complications for an operator, right, who has their head down, really focused on their culture, their team, their product, their service, and often they don't even know about these things until it's really later down the road. So that's a challenge that is sort of accelerating. We're seeing more and more of that type of challenge. It used to be that would start in Seattle or San Francisco or New York, and it would take some time. Now it appears that the cycle for uptaking this into other states, whether it's minimum wage increases or other regulatory things, is much faster. And so we're seeing many, many more states sort of jump on the bandwagon after that happens, usually in California or New York or Seattle, and sort of spreads. And what that does for the small guy is it doesn't give us a lot of hope that it could get reversed, right? The precedent is set. 20 states have adopted it, and so it's probably not going away. Used to be that you could sort of have a referendum or fight it and get some amendments, get some carve-outs. You had time. Now it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of time. So for small independents particularly, that's just not even on the radar of the day-to-day, yet they can get caught, right? And so it's just the added pressure. And then the ones they do hear about that are really overwhelming, recently, the wage increase. We had 5 years to go $5, and we just went $4 or $3.50, depending on where you were, $3.30, $3.70, $3.50 to $5 more in 4 months. And that's not something you can plan for. It's not something you just have to make the adjustments. And so what we see is that especially independents immediately raise their prices to accommodate for that wage increase. And the problem with that is that we are already at the top of a inflationary period that the consumer was stressed and stretched and starting to pull back already. So if you're an independent and you're running on pretty small margins, you raise your price and your sales go down, your customer sort of pulls back, that can be very devastating. They're not working on very significant margins. And more important than the margin is they don't have many units to compensate for that that difference in profitability. And so it really becomes a challenge, and we do see lots of independents saying out loud, I'm not sure how much longer I can hang on. We're seeing older folks, people have been doing it 15, 20, 25 years, throw in the towel and say, you know what, I'm good. I've been there, done that. I'll figure something else out.
This is their time.
This is too much. Yeah, this is too much. I'm done. So we are going to see a pretty interesting period over the next 3 years, maybe 5 years, but definitely next 2 or 3 years where we're going to see kind of a shift and a change. And I think how many people get into the industry, whether small independents decide to grow or even stay in it.
Right. And I've heard some independents saying that they try not to raise their prices because they feel what the customer is feeling, and they have that connection, and they're bearing that weight of the higher wages, the increased costs, and then they can't even turn a profit. So they're getting hit hard. And then some people are, again, forced, like you said, to go into the raise their prices and deal with the ramifications of that. So what does a restaurant owner ultimately have to do to eke out a profit and survive in this environment?
Yeah, look, I've been spending a lot of time in my career previously and now less so, but I'm really close to the independent operator, the small emerging chain operator. I've had a practice for many years in consulting that has allowed us to stay close to that and understand what's coming up and who's growing up and keep an eye on things. And so, a couple of things I'll say is I've never walked into an independent or small group restaurant that we couldn't find margin. It's there. Mm-hmm. There are optimizations in your labor scheduling, in your labor mix. There's optimizations in your prep, how many hours you're allocating to prep, how efficient that time is being spent, how productive that time is being spent. There's opportunities to outsource many things now that give you economies of scale, like prep. At Pepper Lunch, we have completely outsourced 100% of our prep. We make one thing in the building. It's push a button and make rice. Mm-hmm. Everything else is made for us outside the store. Now, of course, across many stores, you get a large economy of scale there. Right. But even the small independents can form co-ops or join co-ops, join group purchasing organizations. So there's a lot of efficiency on the cost side that can be found. And if you're not sure where to start or what to do, just get mentorship. Join a roundtable or a mastermind group, or find a coach or a consultant, or go to your local CRA gathering. CRA is California, but wherever you are, go to your local restaurant or state restaurant association. Go to a conference, right? It's the smaller independent conferences that are out there are really, really high value. They're usually very focused on very few topics. So find something that has the topics that you can go learn, right? At the end of the day, Google and YouTube are a great place to go. Right, yeah. Quite frankly, there's a lot of people putting out great value on TikTok. Yeah. Just search it, right? But you've got to get out of the business a little bit to work on the business and allow yourself to learn and to skill up, or to bring those skills from the outside in, because the alternative is the end of your business, or struggling, or stress, your health. Lots of things are subjugated to that worry. So I would back away, take the risk of having a few less optimal days in your business, and focus on some of these things. Last thing I'll add that I've been talking about a lot lately, because we found it directly ourselves recently, is we are back in an environment where suppliers, distributors, small suppliers, purveyors, are willing to negotiate. They're willing to work with you on price, and they're being very consultative on alternative products. Good products. You don't have to ladder down in the quality. It just may be a different brand, or maybe an up-and-coming brand, or maybe you can get in with a group that's buying a lot of something and you can tag onto that. So again, back to cost, but specifically in supply chain, that's an environment we haven't seen since 2017, 2018. So obviously COVID, and since COVID, they just were not in a position. They were very inflated in their costs. Today, they're back into sort of a competitive mindset. And so we're seeing some opportunities to save margin there.
So there's not just one lever. I think, we were talking earlier, it's like you think immediately you have to raise your prices, or you deal with the pain of not making any profit. There's a lot of opportunities. You got to dig a little deeper, double click on your whole operations and see where there's opportunities. But you got to get creative and kind of think.
Yeah, it's a little bit from a lot of places, right?
Yeah. And I think we're in a beautiful time where, like you said, content is like flowing from all sources, whether it's like podcasts like this, or you said like TikTok. There's a lot of areas where you can learn for free and get tips and talk to a bunch of people about the ways that they're improving their business. That's great. So speaking of margin and kind of the cost, one area that's more and more pronounced is the third-party delivery apps. That's become, ever since COVID, that's a huge spike in online orders for delivery, and that's a big commission to pay to these aggregators. And so how should a restaurant think about that? Because if you're talking about profitability, that's one area where, like, hey, all these third-party orders are cutting out 30% of my profits. We always tell people through Promenade that could be like a marketing avenue for you, but you can't really rely on it. What is your take on this?
So my take is that these platforms have matured and have been around a long time. The consumer is essentially addicted to them.
Yeah.
I didn't order food online to my home for years. And if I did, it was a very like painful but unique experience. I order probably 5 days a week now. It finally got me, right?
It's just too convenient. It's
All the streaming services got me too. So eventually I acquiesced, right?
Yeah.
But here's the difference. They also created other products. Their goal is to acquire as many customers, actual restaurants or operations businesses, and as many independent individual consumers.
Right.
Because the consumer is what drives the usage of those platforms.
That's right.
I choose Uber Eats versus DoorDash, Grubhub, Postmates, et cetera. I choose that. Maybe it's the interface, maybe it's the mix of brands on it, whatever. So there's the competitive environment. And so the opportunity for an independent particularly is to understand that they're bringing their consumer to the table as well. They're not just receiving the benefits of new consumers through the platform to their brand, but they're actually providing that as a tool or a service for their existing customers. And so they should realize that they have some leverage in that relationship. I actually think that the time, energy, and money that you would have spent using a platform for discovery and marketing, if you reallocate those dollars to direct self-promotion online through your loyalty, getting on a loyalty app maybe, or a other form of app that can help do those things for you, I think that is a better spend of money, time, effort, because then you have the control, you have the relationship. And I think in the long term particularly, that's going to really matter.
Right. And I think that's the interesting point there is, especially even like with Promenade, the way we talk to restaurant owners is if you're using these third-party apps as an avenue to get new customers that you didn't have access before, that's great. And that's almost like a marketing budget of paying that commission, whether it's negotiated down from the 30% or not. The frustration is when your existing customer feels more convenient going to the app, and then you're losing money on someone who is loyal to you. If there's an avenue to get someone to come directly to you, and that's where obviously Promenade comes in. We build websites for the restaurant owner to have a easy experience for their customers to purchase from. Because if the convenience is not there, 9 out of 10 times you're going to go through the app. Why would you go through the hassle of trying to call and go take a phone order or go on a clunky website if you can just tap a few times on Postmates or DoorDash?
Right.
And so I think what restaurant owners need to be aware of is that you need to take that channel and turn it in, think of it as a marketing avenue for you to bring those customers in and become your own loyal customers. Otherwise, you're just constantly going to be pay to play with those, whether it's 30% or 10%, you're just giving up margin for no reason when you can kind of bring them into your own ecosystem.
Yeah, one of the issues I'll caution though is that we've all thought in the early days of this new world era of these apps and these customer acquisition platforms is it's being proven through lots of research over now a number of years, you're not going to convert them from DoorDash to your website directly. You have to build a very compelling interface, right? And I'm not saying that they can't do that with you, but you have to really focus on that. You have to build community. It has to be compelling for me to choose to find your app or your website over that sort of catch-all environment. There are brands that do it really well. I've never ordered Chick-fil-A on anything but Chick-fil-A's app, right? And there's others like it that you can refer to. So it's possible. It doesn't take millions or billions of dollars. Right. It's really about building a relationship with your consumer. I think it's about creativity. The more creative and the most personalized and more direct of a relationship you can have, the communication that you can create, whether it's a chatbot, a thank you, create a YouTube video on a private channel that there's a QR code in the bag that they get a personalized thank you from the owner, the manager, whoever in the business. There's just lots of creative ways, I think, to build that relationship. If you just drop a link or a QR code and says, join our loyalty program, or next time, please order from us, here's all the great reasons why, you'll convert some people, but the inconvenience of that choice over the convenience of the other is not compelling enough. There has to be some other reason that I buy in as a consumer.
Absolutely. Agreed. Speaking of the consumer habits, how do you feel about the way they're thinking about prices? We talked about price increases and obviously now people are becoming more and more accustomed to paying obnoxious amount of money for a sandwich, for example. And so how do you think, are they getting frustrated? Are they dealing with it? how do you see this all playing out? Is there going to be like a revolt around this idea of like the prices just getting obnoxious for?
So there already has been a revolt.
Yeah.
Consumers vote with their wallet. They have pulled back. McDonald's released earnings yesterday. It's not good. But everybody's focused on that. And I have a contrarian position to this.
Let's hear it.
People are only willing to pay what it's worth to them, and that's called value. And an $18 Happy Meal or whatever combo meal at a McDonald's or any other fast food restaurant, the difference between that $18 and the $24 at a fast casual or higher quality or what I perceive to be a better meal for me, that delta's shrinking. And therefore, the value proposition of the lower cost one is less. And why do I want to eat that quality food, even though it's more convenient? There's more locations. I can get through drive-thrus faster, things like that. But if I can just spend a few dollars more, I can get a better quality or perceivably a higher value return on my investment for that meal. And so that's why we're seeing the lower cost fast food chains are struggling, but yet Texas Roadhouse has nearly 20% growth. Chipotle's turning in massive growth. I'm seeing earnings reports over the last week, large, significant double-digit growth year over year, same store sales. And what it's showing is the consumer's just laddering up. Hey, if it's going to cost me 18, I'm going to pay 24 and go get something else. That's what they're saying. And that's why you're seeing the value meal, the lower cost options start to be highly promoted within these brands. What they know is if you, everybody who, not everybody, but a huge number of people who order off those value menus actually stack or they add those items to other items. And ultimately, yes, they might overall, their basket size, their average order might be slightly less, but they'll come in more often because they perceive it to be significantly less because I bought 3 $1 hamburgers instead of $4.50 hamburgers. So it's an interesting dance with the consumer. It's ever evolving. These are phases, seasons, whatever you want to call them. The thing that I don't think most people in our industry realize is that there is a significant delay to the macroeconomic environment. Inflation peaked 3, 4, 5 months ago.
Yeah.
February, March, right? And yet here we are going into August, and now it's really affecting businesses throughout July. Late June and July is when we started hearing about it. There's a delay. And so now that the economy is better, inflation's reducing, and all these other things, there's still a delay. We're going to see January before we start to really see people get comfortable. And quite frankly, as we go into the holidays, kids are back to school earlier. So people are spending more money now than they usually wait until September to spend. And then the holidays will come around. We'll rack up credit card debt. We'll pull back in January. Right. And by March, we forget about everything and we're off to the races for spring break. So
That's right.
it is seasonal. And I think independents in particularly need to be very thoughtful about short-term reactions to long-term macro trends or cyclical environments.
So speaking on that, like in the next few years, do you see this as the new normal? Is the idea of like price wars where, we get back to like the fast foods being value driven or a good deal gone forever? Or is this, like you said, potentially just like part of the evolution or a cycle that, we're dealing with?
No, it is a cycle in a way that they will do what they need to do to protect their their gross and their perceived value to the market. Many of them being publicly traded companies, it's very difficult for them to not react and have to put things out. I think it is going to be an interesting time for the next 6 months. After that, I don't like to predict, but I do think that things will level out to some degree. One thing that is new and not changing is the increased wages across the country.
Yeah.
You see places across the country that are in the $15 to $17 range. That they've never been above $10, $11, $12. Right. And so that's not going anywhere. And so that is a new normal. I think people just have to get creative. I'll say this for independents particularly. In COVID, everybody got really smart and really efficient. And we shrunk our menus down to the 9 best, most valued items, best for our business, best for our customer, best for performance. We could produce it efficiently because we had less people in the kitchen. And now just menu creep, menu creep, menu creep. We just see people adding back, adding back, adding back. It really has to be efficient. Look, some of the largest grossing, fastest growing brands in America have 3 to 9 items on the menu total.
Wow.
So Raising Cane's, Dave's Hot Chicken, many of these types of brands. And so you have to look at the efficiencies and the high value to producing quickly, et cetera. You say what you want about quality. I'm a chef. I spent 6 years, went to culinary school, 6 years in the kitchen. I'm a chef by trade originally. I come from the Michelin star in a high fine dining environment. I love nothing but fantastic, high quality, craft made, scratch food. But you have to know what your customer is. Right. And you have to meet your customer where their value proposition says they're willing to pay. And if you can give high value through quality of food, customer service, loyalty relationship, community development, all these things that you can do, great. You've established yourself. But you have to know where you are and you have to know who your customer is. And the last thing I'll say about that is you do actually create your own customer. You're creating a magnet and you're attracting the people you want to your business that will appreciate what you do for them at the price you do it for. And so you just have to find more of those people. And that's where social organic and having apps and online loyalty programs and being able to build your own list, so to speak, through your first party environment, that's where you're really going to build that value.
And don't you think, in some degree, the independent restaurants are more nimble and they have an advantage there versus a big company that has to deal with like the red tape and their brand? I mean, I feel like a small independent can try different things and innovate a lot more quickly.
They can. I would say 2 things. Absolutely. They don't. Because they're in their business, not working on their business.
Right.
And that's
like
broad strokes. But
untapped like opportunity for them.
Yeah. Look, you're right. They own the business.
Yeah.
They're in there. They're operating it. The other thing is they're closer to their employee and they're closer to their customer.
Yeah.
So what we don't see enough of is asking the employees, hey, what is the on the ground reality? Right? Glass castles versus, down in the dirt. Get in the dirt. Ask your employees. Trust what they're telling you. Yes, it's a sample. Yes, it's a moment in time reaction to, the squeaky wheel sometimes, but ask more holistically. There's lots of tools to listen to your customer out there. There's lots of ways to engage them. You can just walk up to the table and say, hey, I own this place. Can I sit down? I'll buy you a dessert. Can I ask you 3 questions? I follow this kid, I don't know his name, on TikTok, but he walks up to random people on the street, and sometimes it's set up, sometimes it's not. And he says, hey, you look rich, what do you do for a living? And how'd you make your money?
Right.
And it's that sort of get in their face and say, hey, why do you come here? Why do you like this restaurant? What is it about what we offer for you? And don't plug the food, don't plug the service. Just let them tell you, right? Because it's never one thing. They don't come to you for any one thing. The value proposition is a recipe just like your food is. So get close to your employees, get close to your customer, believe that when they tell you what the answer to those questions are, and then make educated decisions on what you can do. But you're absolutely right. You have the freedom to move. Now, there's a difference between that's being thoughtful, educated, and strategic versus just knee-jerk reaction.
Right.
And that's very dangerous because you can drive your customer away very quickly by being a pizza shop that now sells burgers.
Right.
It's confusing. Oh, we have tacos now. Well, okay, why? We have Mediterranean ramen. Why? Why do you have Mediterranean ramen? Mm-hmm. Mediterranean and ramen don't go together. They're not. Right. It's Japanese and Mediterranean. Yeah. Can you be a fusion restaurant? Sure. Are you a fusion restaurant? No. You're a Mediterranean restaurant. So please serve that. You can confuse the customer and drive them away, and you can give too much choice. So be consolidated, be concise, be really proud of what you are, and do that as efficiently as you can.
And in terms of like technology, because you talk about like knowing your customer, analyzing. I mean, now there's a lot of data that we can collect and understand our customer, understand what they're purchasing, how much, and maybe you can share a little bit about Pepper Lunch, like how much technology are we leveraging today, and how should we use that in the future to understand our customer and to.
So as an independent, at Pepper Lunch, we have the great privilege of getting what we need and stacking on what we want. And so we actually have 3 programs today. We will have 4 programs that allow us to listen to our customer, allow us to actively engage in different ways for different purposes to get different answers. And so we can get a much more holistic understanding of our customer. And we do that also on the employee side with employee engagement communication tools. So we're very fortunate in that realm, and many large brands have that opportunity. If you're an independent, you can pick one and start with it.
Right.
And it's ways, there are ways to build relationship with your customer. I'll call out a few, no particular loyalty and no investment or no direct relationship. But if I'm an independent restaurant, I'm looking at things like Ovation. Ovation is a single question, as they say, it's 2-question survey. It's really happy face, mad face, or maybe 3 or 4 faces. And the customer tells you how the experience was. And then it's okay, why? If you're happy, hey, what was it that went well and what'd you like about today's experience? And you make a little blurb. Hey, great, would you mind sharing that on Google? Here's the link. We'll take you right there. Create a review. Drives up review score, drives up quality of review, shows more happy people, right? Not so happy. Things weren't perfect. Hey, great, what happened today? What can we do better? Blah, blah, blah. Fantastic. We've texted that to the manager on duty, and then the manager can text back. So Ovation's a really cool tool. There's others like that. There's social and listening like Momo's, a platform that lets you listen to social media, review sites, Google mentions, and blogs and all kinds of other places somebody might mention your brand. So you have an opportunity to listen to what your customer's saying about you and engage them. You can engage using direct communication or even AI-powered communication. So, and these platforms are not, we're talking about like $99 to $200 a month max. You know, some of them are really cheap. Some of them are a reasonable cost for the amount of information, relationship building data you can create. And so pick one and try it and work with them, ask them for best practices. It's the tech company's goal to make it work well for you. So they're going to share learnings from other people who've used it. And no, that's a place to start. I think that's really important.
Great. That's been so helpful to hear, like all the advice you've given us with different tactics, whether it's around technology or how to handle, wage increases, price increases. I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing your story with our audience here at Promenade. Really appreciate you coming in, and hopefully get to chat with you more often.
Really happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.